The conversation around this Patriots team is starting to shift, and it's not just about one flashy move or one big-name target. It's about direction, it's about identity, and it's about whether this front office is finally ready to be aggressive in a way we haven't consistently seen in recent years. Let's start with the edge rusher discussion, because that's where things get really interesting. The idea of trading 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby is not a small conversation. That's franchise-altering territory. If you're giving up the 31st overall pick plus another high selection, you're basically saying this roster is one elite defender away from becoming dominant. Crosby isn't just good, he's a generational-type edge presence. He changes protections, he forces quarterbacks into mistakes, he sets a tone defensively that spreads across the entire unit. But here's the dilemma. How much do you value that 31st pick? Historically, we've seen this organization move off late first-rounders without hesitation. The logic has always been that similar value can be found in the second or third round. If that philosophy still holds, then packaging that pick for a proven superstar becomes a lot easier to justify. But if this front office believes there's a foundational piece sitting there, maybe an edge like a key Mesidor or a developmental offensive lineman, then you stay patient and build through the draft. Now flip to the offensive line, because that's where the scars from last season are still visible. The Super Bowl exposed issues up front that cannot be ignored. Jarrod Wilson's situation is one of the biggest internal questions. He played left guard, but that's not his natural position. At Georgia, he was a center. You saw flashes, but you also saw struggles to 13 games played for sacks allowed. Not disastrous, but not dominant either. If you move him back to center, where he's more comfortable, does his development accelerate? That's a real possibility. And then you look at Garrett Bradbury, 0 sacks allowed in 2025. That's impressive. 20 pressures given up, an overall grade hovering around average, but statistically solid. The decision becomes financial and philosophical. If cutting him frees up around $7 million in cap space, is that money better used upgrading at guard and free agency? Because the market has options. Wyatt Teller, Isaac Sumalo, James Daniels, Kevin Zeitler, proven veterans who immediately stabilize the interior. If it were me, Wyatt Teller makes the most sense. Physical, reliable, exactly the kind of presence that keeps your quarterback upright. And speaking of the quarterback, that's the other reason this offseason feels different. Drake Maye is a magnet. Players around the league see the upside. They see the arm talent. They see the leadership traits. Pair that with a player's coach like Mike Vrabel, and suddenly New England becomes an attractive destination again. Free agents don't just look at money, they look at trajectory. They look at culture. Vrabel brings intensity and accountability. Drake Maye brings hope and explosiveness. Now, at wide receiver, the temptation is always to chase a blockbuster name. T. Higgins sounds great in theory, but realistically, that situation feels locked down. If you're making a move at receiver, it might need to come from a different direction. Someone who fits financially and schematically without crippling flexibility, because let's be honest, this offense needs more than just one-star wideout. It needs consistency. It needs protection. It needs balance. That's why the Pop Douglas conversation is fascinating. He flashes, he'll give you that explosive 30-yard gain that energizes the stadium. But is he consistent enough to be part of the long-term core? Probably not beyond this rookie contract window. You don't cut him, you don't give him away, but you also don't build around him. Defensively, the needs are actually simpler. Edge rush, that's it. Add a true difference maker off the edge, and the rest of the defense is largely intact. Offensively, though, it's layered. Offensive line first, wide receiver second. Protect the quarterback. Empower the quarterback. That's how you prevent another collapse on the biggest stage. So this is where we are, Patriots fans. Do you swing big for a proven game changer like Maxx Crosby and sacrifice premium draft capital? Or do you trust the draft, invest in the offensive line, move Jarrett Wilson back to center, potentially move on from Garrett Bradbury, and build this thing methodically around Drake Maye and Mike Vrabel? If you had to choose right now, what's the smarter path for this franchise moving forward? Because here's the reality. Whichever path they choose is going to define the next 5 years of Patriots football. If you go Elin and trade for a player like Maxx Crosby, you are sending a message to the locker room that this team is done rebuilding. You're telling veterans, we believe we can win now, and that matters. That changes how players prepare in the offseason. It changes how free agents view your organization. A dominant edge rusher doesn't just improve third down defense, he creates short fields for the offense, forces turnovers, and takes pressure off the secondary. Suddenly, your defense isn't reacting anymore. It's dictating. But let's slow it down for a second and think long-term. Giving up 2 first-round picks means you're passing on cost-controlled talent, you're passing on depth, and depth matters over a 17-game season. We've seen what happens when injuries hit and you don't have young, developing players ready to step in. So the front office has to ask itself, is one elite superstar more valuable than two potential foundational starters on rookie deals? Now flip back to the offensive side of the ball, because that's where championships are sustained. Protecting Drake Maye is not optional. It is the foundation of everything. If he drops back and feels comfortable, if he trusts his protection, if he can step into throws instead of fading away from pressure, the entire offense opens up. The playbook expands. The confidence grows. That's when you start seeing explosive plays consistently, not just occasionally. Moving Jared Wilson back to center could quietly be one of the smartest internal adjustments this team makes. It puts him back in a natural role, potentially accelerates his development, and gives you flexibility to attack left guard in free agency. And if you're serious about upgrading, a veteran like Wyatt Teller brings toughness and stability immediately. That's not a flashy headline move, but it's the type of move that wins games in January. At wide receiver, the temptation to chase a headline name will always be there. Fans want excitement. They want a jersey to buy. But this front office has to be calculated. They need a receiver who consistently separates, who converts third downs, who keeps drives alive. Not just a highlight machine, a chain mover, someone who grows with Drake Maye year after year. And then there's the culture piece. Mike Vrabel isn't just a coach. He represents accountability, physicality, a player's first mentality that still demands discipline. When free agents evaluate New England now, they see stability at head coach and promise at quarterback. That combination alone makes this offseason different from previous ones. It feels like there's direction again, but direction alone isn't enough. Execution is everything. Do you build patiently through the draft, trust your scouting department, and reinforce the offensive line so that your franchise quarterback thrives for a decade? Or do you strike now, acquire a proven defensive superstar, and try to accelerate the timeline? Because make no mistake, the AFC isn't slowing down. If you hesitate too long, you fall behind. If you push too hard and miss, you mortgage the future. This is the balancing act the Patriots front office is facing right now. Aggression versus patience, star power versus depth, immediate impact versus sustainable growth. And that's why this offseason is so critical. Now, I want to hear from you. If you're running this team, are you prioritizing a blockbuster defensive trade? Or are you investing every major resource into protecting Drake Maye and building the offense the right way? Drop your opinion in the comments, and let's take this even one layer deeper, because this isn't just about one offseason, it's about organizational identity. For years, the Patriots were known for being unpredictable, trading down, stockpiling picks, letting big names walk, finding value where other teams weren't looking. That philosophy built a dynasty, but the league evolves. The AFC is now quarterback-driven, explosive, aggressive. Teams aren't afraid to swing big anymore. The question is whether New England adapts to that reality or sticks to the slow burn model. If you choose patience and build the offensive line first, you're essentially saying Drake Maye is the centerpiece of everything. You're committing to a long-term window. You're building from the inside out. Strong interior protection, stable tackle play, reliable guards. That approach doesn't dominate headlines in March, but by December it wins football games. Quarterbacks who feel protected play faster. They read defenses better. They take smarter risks. That's how you reduce turnovers and control tempo. Imagine a scenario where Jared Wilson thrives at center, the left guard position is upgraded with a proven veteran, and the right side remains stable. Suddenly, the pocket is cleaner. The run game becomes more efficient. Play action becomes dangerous. That's when your wide receivers, even if they aren't household names, start producing at a higher level simply because the structure around them is stronger. Now flip back to the defensive side. If you land a dominant edge presence, the entire defense shifts. Third and long becomes a strength. Offensive coordinators start game planning around one defender. That ripple effect can shorten games, create field position advantages, and protect leads late. It also energizes the fan base immediately. There's an emotional impact to bringing in a star. But here's the key. Championship teams are rarely built on emotion. They're built on trenches, and that's why this decision is so complex. The Patriots don't need 5 defensive pieces. They need one difference maker on the edge. Offensively, they need multiple reinforcements: protection, depth, consistency. That's not a one-player fix. There's also the financial element. Cap flexibility today affects flexibility 2 years from now. You don't want to be forced into restructuring deals or cutting productive players because you overcommitted too quickly. Sustainable success requires balance between boldness and restraint. What makes this moment so compelling is that for the first time in a while, there's legitimate optimism. Drake Maye gives you hope. Mike Vrabel gives you structure. The defense is close. The offense has a foundation. This isn't a full rebuild. It's a pivot point, and pivot points define franchises. If the Patriots get this offseason right, they don't just compete, they contend. If they miscalculate, they risk hovering in that middle tier where you're good but not dangerous. That's the danger zone in today's AFC. So here's what it ultimately comes down to. Are you building for a sustainable 5-year run with a fortified offensive core? Or are you accelerating the timeline by adding a defensive superstar and betting that the rest falls into place? Because whatever choice they make, we'll look back at this offseason as the moment the direction was set. Because once that first major move happens, everything else starts falling into place. Free agents begin to look at New England differently. Veterans inside the locker room feel the shift. Confidence builds not just from words, but from action. Think about what it would mean for this offensive line to go from a weakness to a strength. Last season, there were too many moments where the pocket collapsed too quickly. Too many plays where Maye didn't even have the chance to let the route develop. That doesn't just kill drives, it affects the quarterback's rhythm, his decision-making, and his confidence over time. Fixing that changes everything. Suddenly, Maye isn't reacting. He's controlling the game. He's scanning the field calmly. He's delivering with precision. And when your quarterback reaches that level of comfort, your entire offense becomes unpredictable. Defensive coordinators can't just blitz constantly. They can't rely on pressure to disrupt timing. They have to respect the protection, which opens opportunities everywhere else. Intermediate routes, deep shots, extended plays. That's when an offense becomes dangerous, not just functional. On the other side of the ball, adding a true edge threat transforms situational football. Late in games, protecting a lead becomes easier when you can pressure the quarterback without sending extra defenders. That allows your secondary to stay disciplined. It reduces explosive plays allowed, it closes games. But what makes this moment unique is that the Patriots aren't starting from zero. They already have key pieces. They already have leadership. They already have a young quarterback with massive upside and a head coach who commands respect. This isn't about rebuilding identity, it's about reinforcing it. The front office has options, real options. They can free up cap space, they can target proven veterans, they can use draft capital strategically, they can be aggressive without being reckless. That balance is where great teams separate themselves from average ones. And the fans feel it. You can sense the anticipation, the understanding that this offseason isn't routine, it's pivotal. Every decision matters more. Every signing sends a signal. Every move shapes expectations. This is where contenders are formed, not on Sundays, but right now, in these decisions, in these evaluations, in these calculated risks. So now it comes down to belief. Belief in Maye's development, belief in Mike Vrabel's leadership, belief in the front office's ability to identify the right players and build the right structure, because if they get it right, this team won't just improve, it will rise. It will compete. It will remind the league that New England isn't a stepping stone. It's a destination. And as the offseason clock keeps ticking, the pressure inside the building only grows. Every scouting report, every internal meeting, every contract discussion carries weight, because the margin for error in today's NFL is smaller than ever.